Well, I've had a lot of different adventures in my life. Well, even like back during the war, I remember a lot of those days that came back. I think I carried at least 24 wounded guys, and I helped when we rescued the prisoners of war. That was a tough one, but we made that too.
Sure. So you were in the European theater?
The southeast corner.
Okay.
Of the Japanese, against the Japanese.
Oh, okay.
We did, I can't remember how many we rescued. What they did was, the Navy had wound up and invaded the other side of that big island, and we came in on the other side where the prisoners were, and there were two of our ships that invaded, and we fought those Japs and took back prisoners of the war. There were different nationalities. Mm-hmm. The fellow that I helped carry back, he was from South America. He named some country down in South America. Well, he understood. He was scared of me, but I just told him I was me American. Then he kind of loosened up a little bit. The other ship brought back a couple of dozen American prisoners. There was 12 of us LSTs that left the States, and 4 months later, only 4 of us still floating.
Sure.
They sunk the other 8. Yeah. Then we took the survivors off a couple of 3 ships, and that was, we got the same action and the same bombing, but the only time we got bombed real bad was, I can't remember where, but they bombed the front of our ship, and we took it to New Zealand, and I inhaled some kind of gas or something, and I went to the hospital in New Zealand for quite a while. Then they took me back on the ship again. Mm-hmm. So I was very, very lucky compared to a lot of guys. I was in charge of the engine room, and this one time I had the crew, a guy named Quincy Grover was so sick, and I told the captain to get him off the ship and send him back to the States. And I think I used some cuss words because I got broken rank. And anyway, 6 weeks later, I got called back to the executive officer, and he says, "Ivan, you're going back to the States with Quincy Grover, and you got your rate back." I sure lucked out one time. So I got on a cargo ship and came back to the States, and we had shot down 8 Japanese planes. Ah, okay. Our ship did.
Sure, sure.
Yeah, we were very, very lucky.
So you were cargo exclusively, or were you also shipping soldiers?
Just troops and tanks and equipment. I was on the engine room, but then when I was fighting, I was on a 20 millimeter on top deck, and so I got to see shoot at the Japs, you know.
Yeah. So how long were you in the Navy?
About 3.5 years, I think it was.
Yeah, yeah.
It was quite a while.
Yeah.
And then I got out of there. Then I came back to the States and worked in a machine shop, and then I went to night school. And and then I bought a gas station. And it's in St. Paul. I owned a gas station in St. Paul. I was there about 1.5 years, and one of my customers was a real estate dealer, and he had a farm up by Pine City, and he mentioned it, and I went up there and looked at it, and I liked it so well, I went up and bought the farm and sold the gas station. And that's why I stayed up there, but I got married then, stayed up there about 5-6 years and answered an ad down here, and in Spring Grove, and they hired me. So I thought because I was having such tough luck up there in Pine City, I got bags in my herd. I would never got a calf. All my cattle was aborting all the time.
Oh.
Nothing but trouble.
Sure.
You know, I was going downhill. I got the job down here in Spring Grove at Mansfield.
Okay.
I stayed there for quite a while, and I got interested in the wood business, and here I am. I went to school there, then I went out to South Dakota during the summer vacations, because my mother was in the hospital all the time, I didn't have a chance to hardly know her. She passed away when I was about 10 and a half. And then my dad married some gal when I was 15, and she made my life so miserable. Then I ran away, went to school in California. Oh, I had a different life than most people.
Oh, yeah, yeah. So how long were you in California?
About 2 years. I went to school, but I worked in a boarding house, and I made breakfast for 7 boarders every morning, and came back and then I went to school, and then came back and helped with the supper, and did yard work, and I slept in the garage. And I didn't have any toilet facilities, so I ran out behind the garage to wee-wee. So I stayed there for about a year and a half or 2, and then I found another job where I worked at a restaurant after school from 5 o'clock until 10 o'clock at nighttime in this restaurant, and that was pretty different. But then I slept in those rich ladies' garage. But then they had a stable on the other side of the garage where I had some horses in there too. So I had a good bed, and I had a toilet in there, so that was pretty nice. But those 2 millionaire ladies, they were nice to me. I did the yard work and so forth for the payment for staying at her place. Yeah,
So you graduated from a school then in California?
Yeah. That was,
and then did you go right into the service shortly after that? Or
shortly after that, yeah.
Okay.
In the Navy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was lucky. When I went enlisted in the Navy, whoever it was that I talked to, I says, well, I know something about diesel engineering, and they sent me down, I think, to the Navy sent me to some school here in Wisconsin, and I started out at $78 a month rather than the $21 a month, so I was pretty lucky.
You were highly skilled.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I was very lucky.
Fun.
Yeah.
So where did you meet Helen?
In Minneapolis, when I met her when I had that gas station. I was in Minneapolis there, but I lived in Minneapolis. I went over to St. Paul every day.
Okay.
The gas station, yeah.
Didn't you meet her at the Toll?
At the Toll Club, yeah.
Yeah.
It was the women had to be 5'10" to get in, and the guys had to be 6'2" to get in the Toll Club. Yeah. But it was a nice bunch of people there.
Sure.
Out in Dakota, I knew my grandmother, my uncle. Granddad had passed away, but my uncle and grandmother farmed together, and so I spent every summer out there with them and with horses. And I had a runaway. One time I was picking corn for my uncle out there, and the first 2 rows along the road, here comes some farmer chasing his cattle back to his farm from out on another ranch, I think it was. And my 2 team of horses got scared, and they ran off with the load of corn, and I had to walk back a mile to find them.
Oh.
So anyway, there wasn't many cobs left in that wagon there, so I caught up and they ran off. Oh, what an interesting life. And I had another runaway when I was cutting corn with a binder for my uncle, and there we had 3 horses, and somehow the middle horse, the bridle, that iron part that was in their mouths came out, and then the straps were, I had no way to control them because everything went wrong, and we ran down the road. The row in the corn, and I was sure making bundles in a hurry that time. They got stopped at a fence, so that's the thing. My parents were born and raised here, but my grandparents weren't. They came from Norway.
Do you know which
sides.
parts of Norway they came from?
I can't remember.
Okay, sure.
Well, I heard it was the Dahle area. area in
Oh,
Norway.
yeah, that's right. Sounds right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's pretty much how we got our name.
Sure.
Originally, the story goes that our last name was Carlin.
Oh,
And, you know, there were so many people that came over.
sure.
And apparently there was a tag that where they were from in Norway, and that was Dahle. So it got transferred, that last name was Dahle, and it stuck.
And stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. More
Well, I was interested in it for somehow, but my objects in life when I was in the wood business was to sell something in every state in the Union.
fun. Okay.
And it took me a few years to do it, and then I invented a game that I sold mainly to schools, and I sold that into 27 states that I know of. You know.
But the reason that you got into the wood business is because Mansfield was bought out by Argus,
Yeah.
and then Argus was going to move to Georgia.
Oh, okay.
And Dad didn't want to move from Spring Grove.
Okay.
So, you know, he had in the
So
back.
necessity.
Yeah, necessity.
Yeah.
And, you know, his mind got going real quick. And so that's how the wood business
Sure.
started.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I remember you as one great salesman.
Oh, someday you couldn't sell a rowboat in the flood. But that was the object in life, was just to make sales in every state.
Sure.
A different kind of furniture. I got a call from somebody, I think it was some government or whatever it was, and I was the largest manufacturer of folding wood furniture. It's a folding furniture
Sure,
in
sure.
America, yeah.
Oh, I never knew that.
Yeah, we sold a lot of folding furniture. But then it's handy here because there's an awful lot of oak.
Sure.
There's a lot of oak being sawed around here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a lot of times at these furniture stores just before Christmas was, a month or so before Christmas
Sure.
was kind of the busiest times.
Sure.
Yeah.
So about what year do you think you started the woodworking business?
God, I can't remember.
Was it as late as the 60s?
It was like 61 or 62.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just can't remember.
Yeah.
So you must have been at it 20, 30 years.
About 20 years, I think it was.
Yeah.
I had some damn good help.
What
Then
did
I
you do
got
other
into silkscreen.
Oh. Okay.
You know, with pretty jackets, T-shirts, and
Yeah.
so
He
forth. There.
sold for the company.
Yeah.
Yeah, he sold for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was quite a deal too.
And then you did insurance adjusting also.
Did what, John?
Insurance adjusting.
Oh yeah, I was doing that even part-time when I was at the wood business. I
Yeah.
got into that. It wasn't very, it was just temporary, but the thing is, like, I'd go out and adjust some farm someplace in some country. Then I'd go into some town and try to sell furniture after I got through adjusting.
Okay.
So I kept up.
When Dad and Mom both really retired and quit working, one of the things I just kind of remember, I wasn't around in the area, but they couldn't sit still.
Mm-hmm.
They had to go. All their lives they were pretty much built that way. They just couldn't sit.
Mm-hmm.
So and Dad got a new truck about every 2 years because there was about 50,000 miles on the truck. Now you've got to remember that's like 25,000 miles in this area,
Yes.
like in this county, going round and round every day, and they'd
Yeah.
stop and have lunch someplace and tell every joke that he could remember,
Yeah.
and off they go again. You know, and that was their fun, and that was their day, and they did it every day.
Yeah.
They just moved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, at least 6 days out of the week, that's
yeah.
for sure.
And Mom would laugh at every joke he told, you know, and
They
she
pretty much
just
all-
heard it 4 times before, you know, in the previous hour, but she was an incredible partner.
Yeah.
Incredible partner.
Very much.
Yep.
Yeah,
So,
we got along real fine.
yep, that's for sure.
Well, I used to go to the Skyline an awful lot. And,
Yeah.
Elmer's course, that was #1. And then the Crest. That was there were 3 places that we used to go to eat an awful lot.
Okay.
The Crest and the Skyline were closed, and I think Elmer's is still open.
Yeah.
I have been there for a long time.
Yeah, it's a different name now, but yeah, still running.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite a deal. You get on the good side of them owners and so forth. I mean, they kind of like they welcome you a little bit to come back, you know. You got to behave a little bit, but you still got a joking kid too.
Oh yeah.
That's part of the game.
So did they have dances and such in the area that you'd go to, or was
Yeah, there was quite a few of them too. Then we used to go down Decorah and dance quite a bit for some reason.
Was that Motters?
Yeah, then. Well, I just offhand I can't remember all the places, but
Sure.
we did rub bellies in a lot of different places.
They had a great circle of friends too that they just,
Oh,
there were like 4 or 5 couples that just hung out together, and they were out and gone all the time.
All
Just
the time.
played real hard.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, we were invited to many different houses,
yeah.
and well, we invited them back too, but we were invited out an awful lot.
So who were some of the people that you would go out with on a regular basis?
The Scaples,
Yeah.
remember Merlin Scable,
Yeah.
and Carl Hooks.
Yeah.
You know, he was with the Rover Roots,
Uh-huh.
and
Owen Foss?
Owen Fosses.
Yeah.
They were the older ones, and then the younger ones was, well, like Norman Halsker and Jim Reeds and so forth. But those 3 was the Scables and the
Hooks.
Hooks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And well, either you went out or you was invited over, you know.
Sure. Sure.
We were very fortunate to get a lot of invitations.
Yeah. Do you have any memories of businesses that maybe are no longer running?
Over Owen Foss, I bought a lot of my Ford cars and trucks from Owen Foss. He was in the,
Yeah.
and then, well, I tried to spend 90% of all the money here in town
Sure.
in different places, but you had to spend some money in other places because they did business with you, so you had to go back and be seen there and
Sure.
advise.
Sure.
But I would say that 90% of the money that I spent was locally. Yeah.
And yeah, Dad was involved in all kinds of social organizations and business organizations, you know, the Lions and the
Yeah.
Commercial Club, and
Yeah.
and you know, with the Legion forever,
Oh, yes.
and still is.
Yeah, I spent quite a few dollars at the Legion.
And you also remodeled it.
Remodeled part of it, that bar, the back
Yeah.
bar I made.
Yeah.
At the
Oh,
Legion.
that's yours.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that bar, the back
And-
bar, yeah.
And it's still there,
It's
still
still-
functional.
Yeah,
So
Yeah.
one of the things also was, since he was so involved in all these clubs and organizations, was, you know, by the end of him serving as so many officers, and he had a wall full of plaques,
Oh.
just covered of, you know, outstanding honors, and you know, that spoke a lot to his life and how he felt about this area too.
Sure.
He loved this town.
Yeah.
He really did. So, and still does, you know. So yeah,
good.
he was involved in all the parades every summer,
Oh,
even in
yeah.
the '60s.
Sure.
You know, he'd have floats and come up with extremely unique ideas to walk down the street with. And,
I built that ship, you know.
The Viking ship.
Yeah, I built
Yeah.
that. The thing is, I would have liked to build it a little bit longer, but I was in the Ford garage where I had a shop at that time, and that building didn't allow me to get any bigger, the ship any bigger than what it was.
It wouldn't fit otherwise.
You know, I
Yeah.
wouldn't have got it out the door. And then that was quite a fun. I really don't think that they had that steering gear like I put on the thing, but in a way the rest ended up pretty fair, I would say. but it's used every year, so
Yeah.
they take good care of it.
Yeah.
What year was that you made that?
I think it was 72, if I remember right. I'm not sure, John.
Yeah.
I didn't make any money on it, but they paid for the expenses.
Okay. For the materials and stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's all I charged for, and then some of the labor.
Sure.
I donated my own labor.
Sure.
What the heck? It was something funny about getting somebody to do some staining underneath there, but I can't remember what it was. But it had a lot of experiences, that boat did.
Yeah.
Yeah. We took it in many different towns and the different parades.
Yeah.
A lot of towns asked for to come in their parade, and I did hook it up and bring it down to Decorah. That's as far as I took it
Yeah.
in their parade.
Well, it's a striking thing to see coming down the street.
Yeah,
It is different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You could lower the sail down, so then when you get it up, you can put the sail back up again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you'd always get a lot of people who want to ride in it. They sure like to ride in it.
Sure.
Yeah, we got you in it, about 5-6 years ago for the parade. And that's the first time you really were in it. Do you remember that?
Yeah,
coming
I
down?
did ride it at one time. I did ride it. Somebody
you were
pulled it and I rode it.
the head of the
once.
ship.
Yeah. The only thing I really changed was the dragon head.
Yeah.
I made a different dragon head for the beginning of it all.
Sure. Fun.
And then I think I had to make another mast too, because it got blown off during some windstorm trade. But anyway, I got a lot of good help with it if I needed it. There's a lot of people here are willing to cooperate with you, to help out.
Yep.
Yeah.
Definitely. Makes it for a
It's
very special place to live, doesn't it?
It has got a lot of good points.
Then in '64, he sold the house that he built here in Spring Grove. It was a brand new house. And then he bought a farm about 4 miles south and east.
Okay.
So that's where we stayed for forever, still there.
Yeah.
Because he wanted a farm. He liked
Sure.
being in the country.
So this took you, a year or so to build the actual house?
Oh no, it didn't take that long because I had the lumber yard built most of it. Then at nighttime, sometime I would put in the oak floors and I'd put in something else.
Sure.
So I was in the wood business, but I wasn't in that construction a big yet. Yeah.
Okay. So when you moved in the country, that farm already existed?
Yeah, that
They were-
was
they were-
it was
they
an
were
older
building
house and stuff.
sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I just like living in the country better.
Sure.
It's just my nature.
Sure.
Because I liked animals. I had a few horses and cattle and a few chickens. And anyway, it's just part of your life that because I was raised out in Dakota on the farm down there with my grandmother. It just inherited that life of farming, that's all.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah, of course, there was, you farm big compared to here. The pasture was, the fields were pretty level, but the pasture was hilly. And you find them cows, but they would answer my voice when I'd holler, come boss, they'd come.
Yeah.
So I could find them anyway.
So how long ago since you visited back in the Dakotas? Has it been a few years?
It has been a few years, yeah.
About 10 years, yeah.
Did you have a lot of dust storm experiences and stuff?
Oh, yes, yeah. It was never anything such as rain out there. There was a creek that ran through this farm, but the creek ran dry almost all summer long, and of course there was some holes that filled up with water for the cattle, but for the horses, I used to, when I was young, I used to have a pump and pump into a tank, but about 4 or 5 times a day, because that well would go dry, then you had to go back and you pump a little bit, well, I can't remember how deep it was, but there was just enough water for the horses, and the cattle drank from those ponds. So it was quite an experience. Yeah.
So what was your farm, what was the closest town to where your farm was?
Out there in Dakota?
Yeah.
Rebello. I don't know, there was something really nice about a lot of them people out there. As I never had much relatives. But the guy that I admired most was that fellow that married my aunt out at down there in Lewisburg. He was
That was Elmer.
Elmer Rugland was his name, and he was a gem to me.
He taught you a lot, didn't he?
Oh yeah,
I mean, and how to relate to people.
Yeah.
You got that from him, I think.
I think so too, because
Yeah.
he was a gem. He was more like a father to me than my father, you know.
Yeah.
And just he put up with me from when I was a teenager.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've been very lucky compared to a lot of people. But then again, you got to make your luck too.
Sure, sure.
You
So
know.
you were an only child as well?
No, I had a sister. Yeah.
You had a sister. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Was she older or younger than you?
2 years older.
Okay.
She moved on. Well, they ended up in New Hampshire. She was a nurse, and then she married this doctor. He's a big. What they did, he was a kind of a common. He wasn't a sophisticated doctor. But he was the head doctor in Manhattan. But they didn't like the city, big city, so they moved to New Hampshire, where of course he was a doctor there.
Uh-huh.
He was just kind of a regular fellow,
Sure.
rather than a snooty. No, anyway, I went out to visit him twice, I think it was, out in New Hampshire.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, well, she passed away now too, but then I keep track of one of her kids,
It's her daughter.
her daughter,
Lives in Maine.
Barbara.
Barbara.
Yeah, it's kind of nice to, well, friends are more valuable than relations in a lot of areas.